used because you're putting a modern radio, not the 30-year-old 2G clunker that eats up all your diesel and operational cost. But you modernize your network with Open RAN. So again, your 2G technology can be used forever, and you can gradually migrate your end users from 2G to 3G or from 2G to 5G. Yeah, there's a question.
Yeah, there's a question. You used a very important keyword, unification. So while you were explaining, there was something coming to my mind, which is part of our other question, but I think it relates to this part of the session we are discussing about the technology and the Open RAN and all. Isn't it that in some ways, subconsciously or consciously, and because of the commercial aspects, in a way, industry also behaves in a way that is creating layers among societies and countries in terms of access to communication technology? For example, we are talking about the journey and the amalgamation and the interoperability of 2G, 3G, 4G, and 5G. So isn't it in a way a bit sort of, I don't know, let me put it that way simply, a double standard that the more advanced we are getting, but because of the parity we have among the social classes in terms of commerce, and also the parity we have in terms of the access to technology. So, okay, rural and poor areas, because since they're poor, it doesn't make commercial sense. They're still on 2G using USSD menu. But again, remind me if later I forget, I need to talk about USSD because this is one phenomena which is still so valid, so important technically, commercially, and can be done so much with this particular technique and technology. So while the rural poor areas are deprived of good quality education, water, infrastructure, health facilities, at the same time in tech as well. So, in that particular area, it's maximum 2G or 2.5 or 3G with limitations. And then there are certain parts of the countries and societies which are into 5G and 4G, and everything is converging, and everything is connected. We are ordering our appliances to do things, take calls. At the same time, that woman who's taking, working in a field, cutting the crop, going home end of the day, something on her head, and she has a small phone which is on 2G. She can't even take a picture or send a message or do a transaction on that unless there are services behind that, USSD menu, whatnot. So why I'm saying all of this, that to me, this is also one part of the inclusion or equality part in terms of sustainable development goals, where industry should be looking at to bridge the gap and the parity that exists within the technology standards as well. Okay, we would need 2G or 3G for a number of years to come, but that does not mean that particular rural area still has to use 2G, but I'm using 5G. It's like poor countries, that mindset that for a poor country, even to get commercial gains out of them, because they're poor and their lifestyle, they're even given very low standard tools to have engagement in daily life. Like if you go to a third world country, you'll find those rickshaws and tuk-tuks, but you don't see that in New York or Paris. So that mindset. So since their shops are poor, the tea and coffee, the lighting, the designs or materials of their houses, everything is poor because they're poor. So might as well, the tech is also poor. He has a 2-inch screen, or let's say 1.5 inch. I have like 6 or 7 inches screen. I can watch movies. I can speak to you sitting across another part of the world. We can exchange documents and information and data, do banking, do transactions, pay bills. Even in an aircraft flying 30,000 feet above, I can make payments. I can send you a text or WhatsApp or even speak to you. So I want to talk about that parity of the tech from like at one part we are talking about space technology, we are into galaxies, and then we have people who are like stuck in forest. Over to you.
Very, very good point. So last year, when we made an announcement with MTN that we were going to bring Open RAN across their territories in Africa to connect the unconnected, one of the executives said that the reason they're bringing Open RAN because it will allow them to cost effectively provide coverage from ultra rural to urban locations. And you know what he said, and it's, still sits with me, and I always use what he said, because wireless technology will bring prosperity. And prosperous Africa is not just good for Africa, but prosperous Africa is good for the world.
Actually, prosperous Africa is a prosperous world because of that same mindset of giving just aid and charity and help. You keep on giving and they keep on taking. You are not developing the institutions, the foundations of anything and everything. And that cycle will never end unless we do this part. Absolutely great. Okay, now I want to touch an important part of our session. And I know you're very passionate about this. How do you see the tech industry playing a role in SDGs? Okay, SDG, there are 17, and then there are a few who are very relevant to tech industry where their role is very critical and very important. And again, technology and communication and connectivity is the ultimate equalizer. Because when you travel, when you move, you communicate, you talk to people, you trade, you flourish. That's how humanity has been. That's what's been told from the biblical times, even in religious books, that you travel, you trade, and then the prosperity comes. If you stick to one place, perhaps nothing much happens. So, and in terms of when we talk about SDGs, which are the key SDGs you think which tech industry is focusing on? And I know that tech industry is doing very meaningful work on that. They are actually, when the GSMA adopted it and then everyone followed. So that was a very positive sign. And they're not just doing it for the marketing and the PR. There's actual work going on. And perhaps the lack of results, which generally people see, to me is more of lack of the policy on the government parts. Because unless any motive or objective you have does not become as your personal policy and your personal goal, then it's just PR. So how do you say the tech industry playing role around SDGs, which are the key SDGs they're working on? And if parallel wireless is working around one of some areas? And what are the key initiatives around sustainable growth linked to technology for the smart societies? So when I say smart society, it means not the smart city, but a society which is smart in terms of equality, inclusion, access to services, good education, good justice, good policing, water, sanitation, and also good environment. Over to you.
Thank you. So the way we look at parallel wireless, our mission is to reimagine the networks so every single person in the world can connect whenever, wherever on the device they want, desire. So that's our mission. And what is interesting, the way I look at the technology is nothing unless it helps people. You can create the most amazing car, you can build the most amazing radio, if we're talking about, wireless. But unless this car helps someone or this radio provides connectivity, then technology means nothing. And the way I think technology will shape the world in the next 10 to 15 years, number one is it will create new ecosystems. And we see it happening right now because we work not just with mobile operators on Open RAN, especially in developing markets, but we work with system integrators, regulators, mobile operators, and all kinds of new ecosystem vendors. An example would be IPT, where it's in Peru, where IPT stands for Internet para Todos, and the goal of the organization is to connect 100 million unconnected in Latin America. So they're using hosting, neutral hosting, sharing as the platform to connect people. So, and that's technology for good, right? There is a new ecosystem that was formed between financial institutions, Facebook, and mobile operator, Telefonica, that started bringing wireless coverage. So that's number one, new ecosystem. Number two is what services gonna help people? How does technology can make people's life easier and better? Is it gonna be a flying car? Is it gonna be, refrigerator that can order my groceries? Or is it something that can teach my child and give my kid that lives in a rural USA same fighting chance when they apply into Harvard or MIT because they have the same level of education? Is it going to be a stove that can, connect to the network? Or is it going to be a pregnant mother that can use technology that she doesn't have to travel for 3 hours to get an ultrasound? And she can get her health checkups done via a cell phone. So technology will need to help people get better educated, allow them to create businesses, help pregnant mothers, children with better health, because these are important things. And, us in the developed world, we don't realize that those basics, they are so important for many, many countries out there. And Parallel Wireless, actually, we feel so privileged that we go into those countries and we connect people. It was so funny. I think it was in Peru 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, when we were building our first site. People were waiting and they were asking every day when the site is going to be live, because they had their phones and they were ready to connect. And this is amazing. This is so fulfilling what we do, in Africa, in Turkey, in Australia. We're actually part of Optus non-spot program. We've been part of it for probably 5 years now, connecting, Australia, most remote areas. Or rural operators in the US, like Inland Cellular. Because now, Idaho and Washington they can expand 4G, cost effectively migrate to 5G, and enable better lives for those citizens. Over to you.
Okay. I think when I asked a very large question, which we jumped from the second to the third. So I think if we just go back to a few parts of the second question when we were talking about all the Gs and the 5G. So if you can sum it up for the audience, so explain the opportunity that exists, all G as legacy networks, and getting out of the physical and mental psychology of, hardware-centric silos. And what is the best strategy for 5G when we talk about these various techniques? Over to you.
Absolutely, really good question. So we see 5G as an opportunity to rethink your network strategy. You cannot just look at 5G and think what you're going to do for 5G alone. What you need to look is, what is my strategy for 2G? What is my strategy for 3G? What is my strategy for 4G? Because if you only think about 5G, then you're going to end up with hardware-centric legacy network and then beautiful, 5G. But the revenue that you generate on 5G is going to be eaten up by you supporting your legacy networks. So we look at 5G as an opportunity to rethink the overall network TCO. Does it answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Okay. So I remember you said that connectivity is a universal imperative. So connectivity in any form, either you're connected by roads, by telecommunication network, by infrastructure, by societies. It's a path to better health or better education, and but how those key components of the SDGs in terms of mobile for everyone, connectivity for everyone, and the inclusive part around focused on the rural and those less fortunate economies. What needs to be done if you have to sum it up in 3 to 4 steps or stages that, okay, if you do 1, 2, 3, 4, we are on the right path, a path which is more rapid and faster, which will achieve the inclusion and the connectivity part by bridging the gap of, let's say, if something is supposed to happen in 10 years, with these measures and concrete efforts we can achieve in, let's say, 1 to 3 to 4 years. Over to you.
Really, really good question. The way I look at it, wireless infrastructure, wireless technology is an enabler. So it enables different types of services. And the challenge with rural areas or developing markets is, as you said, ARPU is extremely low. So it's extremely challenging to bring coverage to areas that not going to see return on investment in 100 years. So the way we look at it, a business model needs to be created that actually allows new ecosystems to be formed. And IPT in Peru is one of those examples. It's network sharing. IPT is a wholesaler, right? So that's step one is to look at a new business model. Maybe you don't need to build your own network. maybe you find a way to partner with other mobile operators and utilize sharing model, right? And that is a basic and foundation of any step one, right? What is a business model? And step two is bringing the governments in, because the challenges is sometimes taxation when the new equipment is being brought into the country, right? And this equipment is going to benefit the country. Let's make sure that it's taken in consideration, that this wireless equipment is going to provide e-banking, e-health, education to the population so they can better their lives. But if the taxation is too high, then mobile operators and vendors, they're not going to be as motivated. Does it answer your question?
Absolutely. You have actually answered really spot on when you brought in the missing point. It has to be government. It has to be states. Unless they are working hand in hand with the tech companies to provide those much needed connectivity solutions to its populations, it cannot happen. Governments also need to look beyond commercial aspects. So that's why, when GSM technology was growing and it was new, a lot of countries I saw they had amazing regulatory policies. Taxes were either slashed or lowered, even on devices, on equipment, in services, cost of the services, etc., etc. And it really helped give boom to the overall wireless mobile telco industry. But again, I think down the road, when they saw that the business of communication is very lucrative, there's a lot of money, and you saw the licensing fees going not up the roof, but out of the Earth's atmosphere, I would say. In Pakistan, it's okay. If I'm wrong, I'll correct it later for my audience. But I think it's $350 million. Can you believe that? So because why I'm trying to say that generally from a non-industry mind, people can complain or see that, okay, the services are expensive, this is expensive, telcos are making a lot of money. But again, you rightly said it's the ecosystems, because the telco has to pay a lot of huge taxes, license fees, and whatnot. They will and they do pass it on. And then the cycle goes on. So unless the ultimate authority, which are governments who regulate, who make the law, they make the laws more comfortable, more adjusting, more supportive. Because the more it's like more numbers and more sales and more business to get more revenues, rather than selling one small thing so expensive, but in limited numbers. Rather sell large numbers so anyone and everyone can afford and everyone can be connected. I know it's a bit political because at the end of the day, certain powerhouses and all the politics around, they want to keep that parity. They want to keep this balance between societies and countries. This is how the world, unfortunately has been. But I think again, and I say it again, because technology has been the ultimate equalizer, because of how people are connected, how access to information has become so easy that a person in a rural area or a village, he can make a TikTok video. He's making money. He never went to school. So that's disruption. Mm-hmm. So with all the disruption, all the equalizing factors, states and governments and business interests have tried and been trying to do their best to, by taxes or fees and whatnot. But I think eventually it would need to come as a policy where, because again, then for example, if let's say for example, if you live in New York and you're in uptown Manhattan, and what's the and if you go to, let's say, Queens, so if you're there and you're connected to 5G and you're literally remote driving your vehicle wherever, but the guy sitting in Queens, is not even getting proper service. He can't watch his Netflix. You know what I'm trying to say? So that parity actually not just exists in third world and second world and first world countries, as you rightly said, it exists within the first world country, within the same rich, powerful country, that few blocks away, a person is here, and few blocks away, a person is here. That needs to be fixed. So, okay, I want to go back to another question, and then we'll wrap it up our session, because it's really interesting, but I want to keep it parts, because I always say I don't want people to get bored by a 3-hour movie, but we'd rather give them a series with episodes. I want to go back to the inclusion part and the women in STEM. Our girls or women, because of the stereotypes and because of the stigmas that exist in the industry, although girls are in many ways smarter in science and tech and maths and numbers. I know that. All my teachers of science and maths were women till my college. This is just one example, but they are examples. Point is, because of the social pressures and all these historical factors and whatnot, and men being stereotyped as more macho, and a woman is stereotyped to be considered as someone who is building a home, who's an object of desire and interest. The woman is supposed to raise the kids and look after the home. But I see that, I think if you look at it from the business perspective, if the woman who runs the home, who manages the budget, that means that house is like a small company which runs perfectly. Then there are no credits, business is running smoothly, the balance sheet looks fine, kids are getting proper education, everyone is fed properly. So it's not just a business company, it's a company, it's an organization, it's a school, and it's a restaurant, all in one. So because of, we know why these inequalities exist and all, and which, world has come a long way, but still, even in this high-tech world, in the modern times we live in, even if you go to the modern places, you hear stories which really baffles you. Like, come on, now we live in an age where these issues of inequalities and harassments and stigmas should not exist, but they exist. Which suggests that there's a need for enforcement of policies and rules and regulations, and above all, more awareness and education, and awareness and education in a way that, like, you make people sit and tell them that what's wrong with you. You both are humans. You are made for each other. You complement each other. It's the same flesh. It's the same blood. Perhaps that brain is actually a bit superior, thinking more. That theory of when how the mind of a woman works and how the mind of man works. There are women scientists and engineers and doctors and whatnot, but why do we see more men in the books and information highlighted, or the best doctor or the scientist? They were women. But it's even in academia and documentation, they are neglected. And after so many years and so many hundreds of years of inequality, again, sometimes I see it's genuine, but I also feel that it's also PR, that after so many decades of suffering, then you have thought of sort of remembering somebody, bringing someone back from the dead and glorifying. Okay, it's good. You are giving them their due credit, but at the same time, what you already have, the running society, the women who are alive, who are struggling, give them that due respect in the daily lives. Change that mindset. Like, I really appreciate it. It's really impressive. NASA named one of the centers of the forgotten lady who was a genius in mathematics. That movie. So I want to wrap up the session by asking you around all the theory and my lecture. In short, how does we fix these stigmas and the stereotyping that exists within the STEM industry, the tech industry, that all the bright girls and women get a chance to work in cybersecurity, engineering, telecommunications, digital transformation, networks, mobile device manufacturers. We want those bright brains. As remember that that lead phrase of our session, that woman is the largest untapped reservoir of talent in the world. So if it is, and we know, and even everyone agrees with it, it is indeed. What are we waiting for? Over to you.
Wow. So I think you highlighted it already. So education is important, right? Encouragement, role models. Malala is such a wonderful role model and inspiration. And role models, they need to be of all ages, all colors, all backgrounds. Last year I was at AfricaCom and I did a panel there, and there were some amazing African women that were teaching in colleges and were scientists. So we just need to grow the younger generation and have more and more women that can inspire other women, and having more supporters like you or my bosses and my company, just have more and more. And I see it in my son's generation, because it's been a long battle, right? It's been a 50-year-old battle since 60-year-old battle since the 50s, right? So, and finally, the newer generation realizes that we're all the same, right? No matter what our color is, no matter how we speak, what we look like, if we're boys or girls. And I believe that my son, he's 16, and his generation, and the generation of that I saw in Africa and in other countries, and India, like Malala, those 16 or 22-year-olds, they're going to change the world. Just like Apple said in that famous 1997 commercial. Those 16 or 20, 22-year-olds, they're crazy enough to believe that they can change the world. And because they're crazy enough that they believe, they will change the world. And I just hope that you and I were around to see it and appreciate it and enjoy it.
Wow, I love the part, the crazy part. I think all those outliers and disruptors and the ones who changed the world, they were the crazy ones. I think all the smart and the genius minds are crazy minds, because all of the minds like myself, we are ordinary minds. So I think crazy is sort of a better word to use when we talk about disruption and doing something better and doing something out of ordinary. I think you need to be crazy. Yeah, because crazy in that particular essence, because only that kind of crazy person has the courage to jump from a mountain into the ocean, or jump from a moving plane and for a free fall. And excellent example you gave of Malala. She's from Pakistan, and she has been doing excellent work on education, and especially for girls. Because I think if, that famous, and everyone keeps saying that, if you educate a boy, you educate a man. But if you educate a girl, you educate the whole society. And I think that what needs to be realized in order to make and affect the change. And unless we don't do that and don't walk the talk, it's not going to happen. And again, I'm going to keep taking my take, which you mentioned, that you need to have supporters. Let me read exactly.
Helpers.
Yes. So that ecosystem of the helpers and your, how would I say, like your fraternity, like you need to create that fraternity of helpers and supporters, not just for you, but for each other and for others. And then the chain reaction happens. I think that's such a gorgeous message for all the girls and the women out there. And I think we, as you rightly said, we really hope and look forward that we live to see these changes coming into effect more rapidly than they are right now. I want to wrap it up our session for now, because there were some really exciting areas which I want to speak to you in the next part of the session. So I'll let the audience keep guessing to keep the interest alive. I would like to really express my profound thanks and gratitude for gracing the session and giving us time with your very out of the ordinary and incredible thoughts and guidance on the various topics we discussed. Really appreciate that. Thank you so much for joining Bond Space Station. Eugenia Jordan is one of our actual tech time travelers, a real hardcore in tech and telecommunication industry professional. We use the phrase the industry practitioner. So sometimes we are just joking in a lighter way that now we have a lot of people who, because of, again, the technology being the ultimate equalizer, they have, because of that, as a consequence, come into tech industry. They try to become influencers and opinion leaders and try to do some work around in the media. But the actual industry practitioners who were actually born and bred and raised in the industry had the journey from the start, from the bottom, from the very first step to the highest step. They are the real people who are enablers of the industry. They are the soldiers of the industry. So that's what Eugenia Jordan is, an actual classic industry practitioner, soldier of the industry. So again, thank you so much. Really appreciate, and I would like you to give a goodbyes and closing remarks to the audience before we sign off. Over to you.
Thank you so much. This was so kind, and I really, really enjoyed our conversation and your kind words. And to you girls out there, you can do it. If I can do it, if a little girl from Russia can do it, I know you can. So just go out there and do it. Follow your dreams. Don't give up. Don't listen to anyone that tells you cannot do it. I know you can.
Absolutely. Okay, so here it's me, Riz, signing off from Johannesburg. Everyone stay safe, wear your mask, and above all, stay sane. Because if you stay sane, you will stay safe. So goodbye for now. See you in our next session very soon. Bye, Eugenia Jordan. Take care of yourself.